Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to Discus Motorsports. As you can obviously tell, we're going to be picking up where we left off from the last video. If you have not seen that video, I will leave that in the cards right now. I recommend watching that one before this one. But we're just going to be picking up from where we left off. We have to finish fully removing the power steering rack, getting all of that out of the car. And then we can actually start rebuilding the manual rack with the new inner tie rods, outer Mazda Speed tie rod ends, and then the bushings and all that kinds of stuff. So we got a lot of work to do. Well, without further ado, let's get right to it. Now that I've actually fully disconnected the outer tie rods and the wheels are free, the actual rack is just simply held in. There's four 14mm bolts that hold it on. Nothing crazy, but it is a little bit difficult to get to the back ones, so I'm going to remove those, and everything should come out pretty freely. The power steering rack is finally out. It's these 4 bolts on each one, and then the actual U-joint for the lower steering column, 1 single bolt, and then obviously I couldn't get to this line down here from the actual pump, so these pumps are tiny, so I just pulled it all out in one go. So now we have nothing in there for steering wise, so I'm gonna go get the new, or not new, but the manual rack, and we're gonna start working on rebuilding that. So before we actually get to rebuilding the manual rack, here I have the Miata manual rack that I picked up and my Miata's power steering rack. So obviously the main differences you can tell is the power steering rack has a bunch of actual hoses all over it, and then going to the pump, I never took the pump off, just to obviously show it for an example. While the manual steering rack has no lines whatsoever, you can also tell that the manual rack's main body diameter is a lot smaller than the power steering rack. So in a technical sense, obviously, what is power steering? So power steering is power assisted steering through hydraulics. So the power steering pump right here, this pulley right here is spun by the engine, and that pressurizes the hydraulic fluid inside of the system, and that aids in steering. So now we're going to get into the pros and cons of why you might want power steering versus manual steering, as a lot of people from Miatas like to argue about it, which one's better. We're just going to be talking about manual steering versus hydraulic power steering. I know there's electric power steering, but we're not going to be talking about that right now. So I'm also going to be explaining as to why I want manual steering. So obviously the main advantage of power steering is it's a lot easier to turn your car, especially when you are stopped. So if you don't have power steering, when you're not moving, you have to fight all the weight that's rested on the front tires. It's not that bad in Miatas, but there are other cars out there that are much heavier, much larger than Miatas, so power steering is very helpful in that sense. Obviously, they invented it for a reason. So another advantage of power steering over manual steering is going to have to be the fact that you can turn the wheel faster on power steering. The ability to actually turn from full lock to full lock is much easier, as again, you're not fighting the weight of the actual manual steering rack. And then some steering racks I know too have different ratios based on if it's power steering or manual. I'm not sure about Miatas, but some cars, a manual steering rack can't turn as far as a power steering rack can. So obviously just the ability to turn the wheel faster is another advantage for power steering. So now getting into the pros for manual steering is definitely road feel. So a lot of race cars actually do not have any form of power steering, or if they do, they have electronic power steering. The reason why is that with a power steering rack, it kind of begins to dampen what you feel from the road. You feel a lot more feedback with a manual steering rack, and also your movements are a little bit more precise. So that's another advantage of manual steering, is that when you turn the wheel, it's gonna, once, if you're going slower, it's gonna be harder. If you're going faster, it's gonna be a little bit easier, but you're a little bit more precise when it comes to an actual manual steering rack over a power steering rack. So in my personal case, I'm not getting rid of any of the components of my power steering rack, so if I do decide down the line that I don't like manual steering on the track, I can obviously throw power steering back in, but obviously I want to try it out before I just immediately stick with power steering, as Another advantage of manual steering, as we're going to get into now, is things like these pulleys and pumps and all that do rob engine power. So removing them, you don't gain horsepower, but you gain more horsepower at the actual wheels. So just a quick, obviously, example is that my Miata makes about 131 horsepower, but that is at the crank. Down to the wheels, I think 1.8 NA Miatas put about 102, 103 wheel horsepower. So not having things like the actual, things that are pulling from your actual engine, like AC and power steering, you might gain, I'd say, maybe 1 to 3 wheel horsepower. Now, again, that's not going to be crank horsepower. It's only going to be at the wheels, just because you're not going to be having what's called parasitic loss, which is losing horsepower from friction and things like that. So we're going to be putting a little bit more power, nothing that's going to be noticeable, but a little more power down to the wheels with manual steering. And I personally like stiff, hard steering. It's just something I've always liked. I don't like when my steering is super, super floppy and inconsistent, just because of how aggressive some cars' power steering systems are. So I like a nice stiff steering, so I don't think the extra weight's going to be that difficult for the manual steering. But without further ado, let's get into actually talking about disassembling it and going from there. So a reason as to why I'm going to be rebuilding majority of this rack, as a lot of people might not deem it necessary, is the actual play in the inner tie rods. Now, a lot of times inner tie rods aren't necessarily going to go bad to the point where they might, the actual tie rod might pull out of how it screws into the body. It is possible, but it's not very common. Most people, especially for racing, will replace inner tie rods more if they bend them, things like that, but they are deemed a wear piece on your car. So on the actual rack that came out of my Miata, we can see when I lift up the inner tie rod and let it go, how slow it moves down. So now we're going to lift it up again, and then lift up the manual rack, and when I let them go at the same time, you can see how much more play the manual rack has over the actual power steering rack. Now, that has nothing to do with it being a manual rack versus power steering rack. It's just the fact that the inner tie rods are more worn out. Same thing with this side. This side is a little bit worse, but then the actual manual rack, same thing, just falls straight to the ground. So that's the main reason as to why we're doing this rebuild. Another reason, too, is if we come over to the lower steering column that came on this rack, the boot for the U-joint, or the U-joint was torn, so it just has a ton of free play. Now, obviously, these are going to have more play just because it is meant for steering. Also, this actual clamp right here is all bent and messed up. Somebody tried to put it on and put it on too low. So we're just going to be replacing all of that. And so without further ado, let's get into actually rebuilding this rack. Another nice thing about power steering when trying to service it is the pump doesn't leak everywhere. I took as much fluid as I physically could out of it, but actually removing it fully from the car, it just leaked everywhere. So without further ado, let's go over what I actually got for the new rack. So first things first, we have some Super Pro manual steering rack bushings. So these bushings are what live underneath the actual mounts. These are what connect it to the car. Obviously, I have no idea how old these bushings are. This is an OEM Mazda, manual steering rack from Miata. I don't know what year car it came off of. I don't know how many miles it has on it. So we're going to be replacing most of the wear components on it. So bushings, obviously, they're not crazy expensive, and it's definitely a good investment, as it'll help prevent the actual steering rack from moving around as much. So huge upgrade. Next, we have my OEM Mazda. These are Mazda Speed Miata tie rod ends. So I'm going to take one out. So the reason why I went and spent the extra money on the Mazda Speed Miata ones is there is actually a difference. So it's going to be a little bit hard to see, but if we go over to the actual tie rod end that's still on the car from the previous owner, and I open up the new one, the Mazda Speed tie rod end is slightly longer in the casting. It's going to be a little hard to see, but when I put them lined up together, the threads is slightly further past where the other threads are. So it's just that the casting is slightly longer. You get a little bit more threading in here. It allows you to actually adjust how everything is a little bit more, and then you can run a little bit more negative camber without totally messing up your actual steering angle, just because these are slightly longer. So I personally recommend, if you're going to be using Mazda or any OEM equivalent tie rod ends, definitely look at the Mazda Speed ones, as if your car is built for performance, you're definitely going to want them for just a slight upgrade. The casting's also a little bit thicker, it looks like, so they might be a little bit stronger. And then finally, we have new actual inner tie rods for manual rack, new boots, and then all the actual fastening hardware for them. I'm not 100% sure as far as when it comes to these tie rods if there are ones that are, you know, manual specific or power steering specific. I've been told that they are. So if you're going to be looking at ordering anything like this, definitely, you know, keep that in mind. Nice bright silver, though, versus the kind of OEM grayish brown. It's probably just rust, in all honesty. But, so without further ado, let's get to removing the actual boots and disassembling everything. After a long and very difficult fight, finally got both inner tie rods out. This side's, for some reason, don't know why, this is the right sides, put up a huge fight. I'm not sure, like I said, as to why, but it did. But anyway, now that these are out, I discovered that there's these little boots inside to protect the actual inner tie rod. So I'm probably gonna take these, put them on the new tie rods because they're still in good condition. So that means I got to get these actual lock nuts off, get the old tie rod end link off that one, and then what I'm going to do after that is I'm going to try sanding down just like right here and giving it a little bit of paint, just because my other steering rack wasn't, you know, just bare silver like this, and it's not, I don't really like the rusty kind of look of it, obviously. So yeah, without further ado, let's sand this down, tape a lot of stuff off, and then we'll actually be able to give it a layer of paint, and then start assembling everything, letting this dry, and doing the rest of the work in the Miata. Alrighty guys, so the actual body of the steering rack is now drying. I just painted only the body of it and taped off the areas where it wasn't rusty. I don't want to put, you know, paint on anywhere underneath the boots or anything like that, as they're going to be filled with grease and oils and all that, so there's no need to paint those areas. Hit it with some rust reformer first after I sanded it, just so that any, you know, it's not like rotting away or anything like that, and the rust was coming off super easy with like 600 grit sandpaper. So that's just, you know, take care of any rust that gets left over. Then I'll actually paint it with just matte black paint. So while that dries, now I guess we're going to start getting to work on removing the front control arms, as we have a lot of Super Pro bushings to install. So it's going to be a ton of work. We'll also be replacing all the control arm ball joints. So once those actually show up in the mail, we'll be able to do that. But first things first, let's get the actual wheels and tires in the front off. start disconnecting everything, and start taking out the also taking out the coilovers. As super excited for it. It's been probably about maybe like a week to a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks. I will be getting my new suspension for that, so when that comes in, we'll fully talk about it. I don't want to give away too much about it, but I'm super excited, and it's definitely a lot more race car oriented. I'll say this right here as a disclaimer: they are not Zetas. For anybody who owns a Miata for track, you know, I'm sorry, I can't afford Zeta coilovers. Those are, you know, $2,500 starting price. I can't do that, but I did get another fantastic option for the track. So when those come in, like I said, we'll talk about them more. But, oh God, without further ado, let's get to fully disassembling the front suspension and all the control arms and all that. Now with the actual wheels and tires off, there's a lot of stuff I have to disconnect. So that being the sway bar end link, all the bolts that hold the actual hub and with the knuckle on, so both the actual ball joints. I'm kind of realizing these ball joints look almost like they're OEM because they're very dry rotted, so it's a good thing I'm replacing them. Normally on Miatas, you're not supposed to be able to service these top ball joints, you're supposed to replace the entire control arm. However, because I got those new Super Pro bushings, I'm going to be replacing these. There are companies that make kits. Mine is Moog, that's the ones that I got, that allow you to just replace this ball joint. It's cheaper than replacing the entire thing. So, without further ado, just start unbolting stuff and see where that gets us.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. Everything I do so instinctive and so passionate. Every word I move so descriptive like an adjective. I got a vendetta against people who patented being negative when you should be getting after it. I got facts over tracks, this and that. Spitting slow, spitting fast, I could roast, I could gas. Think I'm okay at last, but I don't know if that can erase all the past. And the pettiness, a reflection of the emptiness. Hilarious, you think you're worth my time, you're delirious. Mysterious, because you hide behind a fake exterior. Inferior, you know I'll always be a bit superior. Get off of me, this ain't no humble brag. I want you to hear words, you can say them back. I want you to feel free from the chains at last, and to believe in what you got, it was built to last, yeah. Now that I've been put through hell, I never got anyone's help. I had to do it all myself. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. Gonna learn the consequence of being incompetent. Mental health is confidence, dreams and some honestness. I'm not here to save the day, that's for you to take away. I could play a million mind games, but instead I say something not illogical, something that is topical. Rub it on and watch it go, make yourself unstoppable. Dreams are irresponsible, but they're always possible. If you just believe, you could be so remarkable. Thoughts in my head, a collage and they spread. I'll be great one day, going off of my meds. No, I'm not giving up, no, I'm not giving in. I will make it to the top, taking off in the wind. I gotta make it, I'm saving every day to taste it. I'm patient, but my mind, it can hardly take it. I'm chasing a dream that I've had for several ages. A vacant, modern kingdom for the taking. Now that I've been put through hell, I never got anyone's help. I had to do it all myself. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit.
So everything now is disconnected. I'm sorry I didn't record it. Ball joint pullers are terrifying to use if you've never used one of these things before. They basically act like a mini explosion to kind of force the actual ball joint apart. As you can kind of see though, these things are ancient, they're dry rotted. It sprayed up a bunch of grease from inside this one. I have disconnected the top ones before when I was installing my coilovers just to pull the hub forwards. Hub's fully off, so I'm not going to reassemble anything until my new coilovers come in. Now it's time to actually fully remove the actual control arms, and I'm not sure if I'm going to powder coat them yet. I don't know if I'm going to have full amounts of time for that, because that might take a while on sanding and all that. Not fully sure yet, but I'll decide once everything's off. So we're going to fully disassemble this side, start working on the other side, and I think that might be where I call it for this video. I'm not fully sure, so no point in talking about it until once I actually get everything done.
Try to play it, but you're never gonna beat me. Look the other way, what I'm doing ain't easy. Bloody hands stained from the people who deceive me. Muddy hands break through the chains, go free me. Looking for change, looking for pain. Pulling a mob, pushing a train. I'll never stop, stick to a lane. Pick up the pieces and go rearrange. I'll be the best above all the rest, put me to the test and expect nothing less, you check as I'm chess, what's happening next, yeah. He got the venom, a tangible weapon, no coming in second. This life is a lesson, he got a new engine from pain, that's a blessing. New focus, no guessing, just bold and obsession. All in his possession, you got their attention. I'll leave an impression and take a redemption. Just kill, no discretion, your mind is a weapon. 11-11, it's time for progression, You could try to play it, but you're never gonna beat me. Look the other way, what I'm doing ain't easy. Bloody hands stained from the people who deceive me. Muddy hands break through the chains, go free me. People like sheep move feet, hurt it easy. You don't wanna be fast asleep when they scheming. Better stand tall, ready for a fight, believe me. When they try the chains, you can say no, free me. So he's been looking for somebody who could save him, instead of searching inside for what they gave him. A strong will, strong mind causes mayhem. We could change the world, change times, rearrange them. Staying on pace, running the race. Life is a chase, I don't want a place, I wanna be first. Work till it hurts, dehydrated thirst till I'm in a hearse. High ambitions in the right mind can take you so far. It's like you lived a few lifetimes. Take off from a break off from the weak mind.
Now I finally got everything out other than the actual coilover. Just have the two top hat bolts. So we're going to pop the engine bay again, remove those, and then zip tie the actual hub back up how I did on the other side to hold it. And then we should be able to call it there for this video. Alrighty guys, so that's going to do it for this video. As you can see, all the front control arms are out. There's one coil over there, the other one's down my driveway. All I have to do now is push out the actual bushings and then push out the upper ball joints in these actual control arms. These ones are definitely the OEM bushings, or ball joints I should say, and bushings. They're all dry rotted and super cracked up. When I use my ball joint puller on them, it just split them open and grease started coming out, like as you can see right there. So that's about it. The lower ones just bolt in, so I ordered all new ball joints as well. And then, just as I was talking about before, just so we can get a better look, these are what's called the eccentric bolts. These are what hold the lower control arm to the car. And you can see these bolts are kind of an uneven head, so when you adjust them, they go in and out. And there's also this little flat right here on this one, right there. These are what adjust negative camber on an actual Miata. This is for the front and rear. So, in the next video, what we're going to be doing is I'm going to sandblast these, fully get them cleaned up. Then we're going to be taking them, powder coating them. I'm not sure yet on the color. I'm either thinking impact blue, which is a kind of like a darker, like metallic blue, or I'm actually thinking about Montego blue to paint match it to the Miata. Not fully sure yet. Depends really, because I already have impact blue powder. I don't have Montego blue, so if I order some Montego blue and it doesn't show up in time, then impact blue it is. I like both colors. But I am sorry that these videos, this last video and this video, haven't really been start to finish project videos like my other ones are. This is more of kind of a mini series where we are fully revamping the steering and suspension system of the Miata. We're also going to be doing an oil cooler further down the line, just because I don't like how mine was first set up. So I appreciate you guys sticking with me, just because it is a little bit kind of clustered and a little bit unorganized, just because, again, I'm kind of at the mercy right now of shipping times, things like that, for the actual ball joints, the coilovers, everything like that. So I also realized there's a couple new bolts I have to order as well for the suspension. But again, guys, thank you so much for watching. In the next video, like I said before, my goal is to have the front control arms powder coated and start working on pushing the new bushings in. That way we can hopefully get the new coilovers, get the front end fully done, and then move on to working on the rear end, just because, again, my driveway is kind of a bit of a slope. I don't really want to lift the entire car up in the air. I also have new tie rod end links to put on, the actual, or not tie rod, suspension, sway bar end links, excuse me. Couldn't remember their name. It's been a oh, that just fell. Been a very long day today out here, so yeah, so like I said, that's going to do it for this video. So thank you so much for watching, guys. Thank you for everybody who has been supporting me recently. By the time this video goes live, we will have just hit the 1-year anniversary of Hibiscus Motorsports, so I'm super happy about that. Thank you so much, guys. We destroyed my my 40 subscriber goal. Now we're at, I think, 43 as time of recording this. So thank you so much, guys. It really means a ton to me. For everybody who is coming along this journey, this is your first one of my videos, welcome. Thank you so much for watching. If you like my videos, you like what I do, please consider subscribing. It's the best way to support my channel. Completely free, but it's the best way, so thank you so much. And if you do subscribe, don't forget to click that notification bell, set that to all, so you never miss a upload. I know sometimes they kind of go under the radar, so that's gonna really do it. So thank you so much for watching, guys. See you in the next video. Peace.